So one of the things I think about when I'm thinking about developing world projects is there's a lot of people without electricity. There's a couple billion people probably on this planet that don't have access to electricity. So if they had a little electricity, would that matter to them? And I've seen it. It makes a huge difference. If all of a sudden you have light at night, you can start reading. The kids can do their homework. The adults can, if you put lights in the school, the adults can have meetings at night because there's light there now. And so we don't really know the long term implications. I've seen short term results of more studying going on and things like that. But who knows, well, what happens at these meetings now that are happening that didn't happen before? So the upside of this is there's a huge potential for positive change in these communities, which I think is critical. Just having some lights makes a difference. The other thing, too, if you provide even small lighting systems in people's homes, they don't have to go buy candles and kerosenes now. They want to have light, so they're going to buy candles and kerosene and have some kind of light in the evening, but it's really a poor quality light. It's hard to study by that. It's giving off smoke, so there's respiratory problems. And so if you can replace that with a small solar system and a couple lights, it actually is cheaper. If you add up the amount of money they spend on candles and kerosenes in a year, they can probably pay for their entire solar system in a year or two with that money. And these systems should last a minimum of 5 years and could last as long as 20 years. It's usually the battery they'll have to replace after 4 or 5 years. But the upside is they no longer are buying candles and things like that. Um, I wanted to get back to another topic about planning trips and, things that you would think about differently. Yeah, there's the technological planning, but there's a whole other side of it that I had to learn the hard way. If you're bringing a crew from a village to do an installation, they need to eat. You got to plan for things like food and water, and people don't work very well if they're hungry. And I noticed that at one job, nobody worked, and then we ate lunch, and then everybody went to work. The afternoon, the last 2 hours of the day, when the food finally, gave me energy, we did most of the work. But all morning long, we didn't do anything because people didn't have breakfast. So then we started thinking, all right, let's plan this. Let's get some breakfast, plan the meals. So it's things like that you don't think about. You have to bring clean water along. A lot of times you're going to a place that doesn't have clean water, and everybody gets sick if they'll drink the local water. So things like that. Another thing is you're going to some other place, especially a rural place, and there's 8 of you or 6 of you or however many. There's not a hotel there. Where are you going to stay? What's your internet access? So you got to make plans for how's your communication going to go? Are the people willing to have you come and stay in their house? Should I be bringing a tent or a sleeping bag? All those kind of things you got to kind of think about ahead of time in order to do projects in very remote places.
To what degree is proficiency in the local language a necessity? Obviously, it would be an advantage, but can you get these projects done using translators?
Yes, you can work outside your normal language. And it's actually quite fun. It's difficult and very hard, but I speak Spanish well, so I do well in the Spanish speaking countries and can carry on the trainings in Spanish and so forth. But I've also worked in countries where there's no English and no Spanish. So, say the main language is, say, French plus a lot of local dialects. And I don't speak French. And yet we can get the projects done. In the technical world, the technical words are almost always the same, but you learn to, with gestures and showing and so forth, and it's a real challenge. But it's really fun when you can connect in other ways than just language.
Are there any ways that you can take steps to ensure a more long-term sustainability of a project if the people that you feel confident have the training may be mobile and may not have been trained on how to train somebody else?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, training is a huge component of this type of project. People have to be trained to maintain the system after you leave. It's their system, they've got to take care of it. And so, how do you select? And it's very hard for me coming into this community to be able to select who are the appropriate people to be trained. And so, we often work with the community leaders, and they pick out the people they think are most appropriate to train. Do I give a little bit of guidance and advice and during this whole conversation of who to train? Yes. Because what happens if you train young men in a new technical skill, those young men see that as a great opportunity. And I don't want to stop their opportunity. But now they have a skill that's marketable, and they will often leave that community and go to a larger city and get a job then as an electrician or a solar installer. And so, are we really helping that community? Well, maybe if that person comes back and is contributing or sending money back, but now we don't have that person in town to maintain the system. So, one of the ways we try and get it so that at least we have one or two people that are trained that are going to stay is we encourage that older people be trained who are less likely to move out of town, and that women be trained because the women are more likely to have a stable household and less likely to leave town. And so we try and we don't come and say, oh, you must do this and this and this for the people you select for training, but we do encourage that they think through the process of who we should train, and the long-term sustainability seems to be we should train older women, to be honest with you.
How would having a new uh, renewable energy system being put in on one or two buildings affect the political situation of people being jealous that such and such a group now has this resource and we don't have it? Is there a way that you can ensure more equitable distribution of the benefits of these systems?
It's a good question. You do have a problem with, who do you select to put your solar system on in a community? And so generally it's not me that actually selects that. It's that we meet with the leaders of the community or the leaders of the health centers of this region and talk about, well, which health center really does need electricity most urgently? Well, these ones are already connected to the grid, so we need to focus on these. Or we let it become a community decision of, do we put it on the school or should we put it on the health center? And we very seldom go and do a project and put solar up on people's individual homes. If they want to do that, that's fine. We'll encourage that. We'll teach them how to do that. But generally, we encourage them to actually pay some money and put that on their own house. Our work is mainly with community centers and organizations.
Brad, in your experience, it seems to have focused on PV systems for water pumping or lighting, battery charging. Have you had any experience or witnessed any other renewable energy uses like solar cooking or food drying or biogas kind of installations? Anything like that that you can talked about?
Yeah, there's more in this world than PV systems, and I'm a PV guy, so that's what I like to do, and that's where my energy goes. But there's a lot of other things that are going on in the developing world. Most people go and get wood. If they don't have electricity to cook on, they'll go and chop trees down or get firewood and cook with wood. And so we're burning our natural resources, and so we're losing trees rapidly to cook food with. So one of the things I've seen in places, they actually teach people how to make solar ovens out of local materials. So it's not like they're buying a factory-made solar cooker. They're building it right on site, getting the reflectors in the right box out of local wood. And one of the communities I saw work, this was in Nicaragua, with that where SEI has been working in northern Nicaragua for quite a few years. They build the solar cookers and they'll give it to some person in the community. And as long as they're using it, that person can have it. But if they go around the community and say, well, you don't even use your solar oven, let's give it to another person. So then they say, okay, we'll give you time. If you want to use it, great. If not, we'll let somebody that's going to use it use it. And so it's a way to ensure that it gets used. Um, Solar ovens, though, there's a lot of cultural issues around cooking. And so to ask someone to switch from what they've been doing for thousands of years and now cooking on this solar oven, it changes the way their lifestyle, their cooking rhythms, this takes 4 or 5, 6 hours to cook with the sun. And so it's a cultural process that has to happen slow. I can't just show up and throw a bunch of solar ovens down and say, hey, you guys are set now. Sorry.
Has the How has the response been in these communities? Like do you get parades? Do you get a big feast? Are people really ready to embrace this, or are there still some people who are digging in their heels and are skeptical of this shiny new technology?
People walk up and look at a solar panel and they just look at the front and the back and they're like, well, how's electricity going to come out of this thing? right? They're used to some motor or generator with belts, and you got to fill it up with fuels and oil and all this kind of stuff. And they look at this thing and say, no way that thing's going to work, you know. But then at night, all of a sudden the light comes on. And it's interesting, if you put a light outside in any community, there'll be people around there at night talking. So I'd suggest every project should have a couple of street lights so people can gather in the light and talk at night. So that's one cool thing. Do people, I've had people come up to me and say, you have totally changed my life just by having a light. And they'll thank you and they'll give you, one community gave us a live goat. I didn't know what to do with it, right? But we put this solar pumping system up, and this is fantastic. Go get a goat. So they went and got a goat, and they gave us this goat. And I didn't even know how to pick it up or anything. You know, it's a live goat, and we're supposed to take this back to our hotel room. So they had to tie it up and throw it in the back of the truck for us. And then we did take it back there, and we eventually cooked it and had a big feast, you know, for everybody. And one lady gave me Chris and I were working on this project, and she gave us guinea fowl eggs. Not just 4 or 5. She gave us 2.5 dozen of guinea fowl eggs, and apparently that's like a lucky number. 2.5 dozen guinea fowl eggs. And so people give you stuff like that because they don't have money, but they're really appreciative that you come this way and share this technology with them. And I have to say, it just totally warms my heart. You know, I just love that kind of thing. It makes me cry almost when they do that kind of thing. And, you know, do I feel like I'm teaching them something great? Yeah, I'm teaching them about this little technology, but I'm also learning that how people live and what their cultural values are and different way of thinking about how to approach the world. So in the end, I actually get more out of these projects, I think, than I'm actually giving people. It's helped my life more probably than I've helped other people's lives.
There is a lot of energy in this movement. People are recognizing more and more, I think, that old ways, maybe, or I should say, the last half century lifestyle has become unsustainable and needs to be changed. And so many people may be asking themselves, well, how can I get involved? How can I go become part of this movement, help people in the developing world uh, leapfrog the mistakes that we've made in the developed world? Do you have any advice for them? How can they best and most effectively leverage their energies for themselves to be safe and also to bring about the greatest good for people who are less fortunate?
Yeah, I get a lot of people, say, well, how can I get involved? What can I do? Can I go on a trip? And I never want to discourage anyone from doing that. I say, yes, go. Let's go. Um, but if they're going to come on my trips, they got to contribute money as part of the project too. But I really encourage people to go and travel, be among other people, find those nonprofit organizations that are working, find some place that they feel really happy to be in that culture, whether that's in Africa or South America or even in the U.S. in our regions that are isolated with our Native American populations and other populations. Go and find a place where you feel like you're at home, and then build relationships, and then start to look at where are their needs as far as what we could do is with solar energy for those folks, and then build up from there. Keep going. Don't stop.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you out in the field someday.
I'll be out in the field. I'm outstanding in the field.
You're outstanding in our field right now.